Hey, fellas, it is good to see each and every one of you here today. Today, we're going to be talking about developing a sustainable and workable 168 weekly schedule. And I don't want to give away too much of what we're talking about today yet, because we have time to, people are still checking in, and we want to open up with several announcements and different aspects. But let's go ahead and begin with a word of prayer, and then I'm going to throw it to Kylie for maybe some announcements that you might need to be aware of as it relates to the summit. And those who are coming in, for those who can't come in, how you can participate in the summit from afar, and all of those things that we have specifically for the members only. By the way, as a member, I do want to encourage you to come to the meetup. Some time where it's just us is going to be a lot of fun, and it'll be an opportunity to break away from the crowds that are going to be thronging you and trying to spend time just with us, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you edge that out in your schedule. I also encourage you to schedule out your 168 for the summit itself. That's what I'll be doing. In fact, I'm already doing it from Sunday afternoon all the way to Thursday. What am I going to? What specifically am I going to be at? And who am I going to be spending time with? So scheduling out that conference can help you get the most out of the conference, and you can find the entire conference set out right there on the website, as you know. Before we go any further, let's go ahead and open in a word of prayer and ask God to bless our time together. Thank you for being here today. I think you're going to find what we have to talk about very profitable. I'm going to be talking for 15 minutes, and then we're going to go to a live Q&A roundtable discussion where you can ask me anything based upon what we've discussed. I've got my friend Brian Sams is with us today. I'm going to have him open us up in a word of prayer and ask him to bless this roundtable discussion.
Absolutely. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the Idea Network. Thank you for Josh and the investment that he's made in our lives and the lives of so many. And I thank you that today we can absorb some more fellowship and truth and ways in which we can improve our personal schedules. And I do pray for your special blessing on the Idea Summit. Thank you that we will all be able to join together in fellowship and growth and learning. And I just pray that you will make it a God-anointed and special time. We love you, and now bless this hour in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right, I'm going to throw it over to Kylie. Let her give you an opportunity to find out not only more about the summit itself, but what you may be needing to be aware of as it relates to some of the upcoming sessions here. By the way, next week, Kylie, we have Ryan Thompson down from Southern Cal, who's going to be joining us. That'll be an exciting. How many of you guys know Ryan? How many of you know Ryan Thompson? Okay, a few of you do. If you haven't gotten to know him, I've gotten to know him quite a bit over this last year. And he's a really great guy, and I'm glad that he's finally able to speak into the network for the very first time. That'll be next week. Kylie?
Yes. So, 2 weeks away is the summit. And you guys know as much as you can the amount of energy and detail that we put into these events. I did want to give you a bit of a sneak peek on one thing that we're doing this year that we've never done before, which is the Bright Ideas Challenge. Now, for those of you who are coming, this is going to be really fun and informative as well. For those of you who are not able to make it, first, find a way to make it. But if you really, really, really can't, there will be a way for you to get a lot of this exact resource as well, even if you can't come. So the Bright Idea Challenge, we will have 30 different bright ideas literally placed not at random, but kind of almost hidden. It'll be almost like a scavenger hunt to find these bright ideas. There'll be bright yellow cards placed throughout the building. Now, if you've never been to Levon Drive Baptist Church, you're not necessarily aware of how cool their campus really is and how many really unique things they have incorporated in their buildings, but also in their processes and operations. There's a lot of really, really neat ministries that a lot of churches just don't do or maybe can't do because of size, but Levon Drive is a sizable church. And so they are a great example to look to for aspirational ideas. And so there's a lot of those that we'll be highlighting through this Bright Idea Challenge. 30 in person that are part of the challenge itself. The first 10 people who complete the challenge will be able to create their own custom merch item. We're going to have a booth at actually, Pastor Josh, I don't think you even know about this, do you? This is one of the things we've been working on behind the scenes.
I'm learning as we
That I'm
talk.
wanting to
right
tell
now.
you
I'm
about, but
excited.
it's minutia. So
Am I
but
allowed
it's
to
fun
participate, or
minutia.
is this only other people?
You can participate,
I
sure.
can win. I
Yeah.
can win. Okay.
Yeah.
Forget it, guys. You're out.
Totally. So there'll be 30 bright ideas all across the campus that you can discover and kind of fill in your challenge sheet. First 10 will be able to create their own custom merch item, which we have a booth of a merch guy coming who can take any size or style shirt and imprint right in front of you exactly what you want on it. So there won't be any, oh, I like this style, but that design and having to not get the shirt you really want. You can make it right there. And then at the very end, everyone who completes it, whether you're in the first 10 or after that, everyone who completes it will receive a QR code to download all 100 bright ideas that are all very, very detailed. Robbie Green and his team have been working for many months on this project and detailing out extreme detail of why they did certain things, like why they designed their lobby the way that they did. Why did they decide to invest in a 2-story playground for their kids' entrance check-in area? Why do they have a Sunday school teacher resource building, an entire building full of resources and flashcards and props and all these things that an average Sunday school volunteer teacher can come in and check out, like a library, check out these resources and use in their classroom. Really cool stuff like that. And there's so many others. But this download will be part of that challenge. But even if you can't make it, you are a member, so you know we're looking at you first and wanting to make sure you get all the best of everything. It will be available to you guys after the summit. I'm sure Jason will be able to send it over and make it available to you. So honestly, there's so many other like cool aspects that we've never done before on this event, but that's one of the ones I'm most excited about. There will also be what we're calling Bright Idea Experts. They'll be in yellow lanyards. If maybe you see an idea or you see an element in the building or in the processes and you want to know more information about it, like for the preschool, how do you start a preschool? How do you run a preschool? What are the legal logistics that go along with that? Or a nursery, even how they do their check-in process. You can talk to the Bright Idea expert for that specific area and really get like into the nitty-gritty. Like if you are looking to maybe do a building expansion, there are some Bright Idea experts that will be there that can really like give you step by step, this is how we did it. And there's no secret recipes here. They're wanting to share everything with you guys, and it's going to be epic. So I'm super excited about that. And of course, our meetup with Dr. Evans that I told you guys about last week will be stellar. 5:30 on Monday night. We'll have about 45 minutes, just our official members and Dr. Evans in a small room, and chat away, ask him any question you want. That's all the time I got. So we'll leave the rest till later.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks, Kylie. We're excited about it. I'm excited about seeing each and every one of you there. By the way, if you are watching right now and you're thinking to yourself, man, I got to tell you, and this came to my realization, I'm going to mention this quickly. I want to offer something specific, special to this group and the members of this group that I took advantage of myself just last week. Last week, about a week and a half ago, I noticed one of our leaders in the church that was not going to go to this event. And I thought, man, he is a young leader. He's a great future in our church. I would love him to serve within our ministry. I personally mentored him, the whole thing. And I just wanted him to go to this event, just felt like he should go. And so I reached out to Kylie and I asked her to create a code to allow me to sponsor this one guy and bring him. And so I'm going to be bringing this guy because I think he's got a great future. And I thought to myself, you know what? And then I contacted Kylie. I said, there's a couple of friends that I have within the membership that might want to take advantage of the same thing. And I want to make that available to you. And I know I reached out to a few of you individually. I want to make it available to each of you that are watching right now. If you have somebody in your church, or you have a pastor friend that lives very close to you and you think, man, I would love for them to come to this event, But the extra expense of the ticket being $200 and some, contact me personally and let me know that you've got somebody. And I will make sure that you get that code for that free ticket for that individual. I want to make sure that if you have somebody, you're like, man, I'm coming, or my wife and I are coming, and man, I would love to bring this one deacon, or I'd love to bring this young man, or that my pastor buddy down the road, I've really got to connect him. Contact me personally. I'll make sure that you get a free code to make sure that this individual is able to come to the summit. I think it'll be good for them, and it might actually expand your opportunity to implement the things that you're going to learn at the summit by having somebody on board with you, somebody that is ready to move forward. So if there's somebody that you want to bring and would like to get a ticket that is complimentary, contact me personally. Each and every one of you, I believe, have my phone number. If not, let me give it to you, or I'll have Kylie put it in the notes, and you can reach out to me for that personal invite. Free code. Okay, let's go ahead and get involved with this discussion itself. Today, I'm going to talk about one of my passions, one of the things that has helped me so much. And the reason it is a passion is because it not only has helped me, it has helped tremendously the guys that work for me, the ladies who work for me, the high impact leaders that I know. So much so that I've taken this and I've helped a lot of other pastors and tried to talk to a lot of the pastors one-on-one with this. James Kephart is in here today. I've talked with him about this. He's in a personal coaching relationship with me right now, a professional coaching relationship with me right now, and we talk about this quite a bit. But it's called How to Develop a Sustainable and Workable 168 Weekly Schedule. And I want to share with you some notes to begin with that I think that are going to be a great help, and then we're going to go into Q&A. One of the biggest dangers that take place when somebody becomes a senior pastor is the danger of wasting time, the inability to properly manage schedule. I understand there's 1,000 different resources as it relates to time management, getting things done. We understand these books. We know these books. But if we're not careful, and I noticed this when I became a senior pastor, I noticed that now that my schedule was mine and nobody was looking over me, I felt like that passage from Proverbs chapter 6, where it talks about the ant doesn't have a taskmaster, an overseer, somebody with a whip telling him do this and do that at these certain times. It was so easy for me to waste away the week. Sometimes I would find myself in front of my computer just scrolling through Facebook. It was an early app at that time. Sometimes I would find myself literally clicking open a video game called Age of Empires. I'm ashamed as a senior pastor spending the afternoon playing a video game. Anybody, by the way, remember Age of Empire? Anybody remember this game? Fantastic game, totally old school. And I wasted a lot of time. I feel like Michael Scott when he said when he first discovered YouTube, he didn't work for 5 weeks. This was me all over the place. Why? Because nobody's managing Michael Scott and nobody was managing Josh Tice. Then later on, as I grew spiritually, I realized video games is not a proper way to spend my time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to study the Word of God and write a sermon. And my plan was to write the sermon by Wednesday. And then suddenly the sermon that I was working on, boy, it was so good. And I kept digging deeper and it went from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday. And then it bled into Thursday. And I wanted to study a little bit more on Friday. And it seemed like all the time that I had to study for the sermon began to expand. And I felt really godly, right? Because no longer was I wasting my time on video games and on social media. I was studying the Word of God. And I spent 20 to 22, 24 hours preparing a 45-minute sermon that I ended up editing down to bare bones and throwing away so much good material. And I began to wonder, I wonder if 20 hours a week working on a sermon is really good. So then I threw myself into pastoring, shepherding, spending time with people. And I opened up my schedule and come and meet me for a coffee. And I'm sitting there hour after hour talking to Grandma Sally about her cats and talking to Uncle Joe about his hurt toe. And now I'm spending time with the people. And I realized these time tables, this meetings, they go from 45-minute meetings to 2.5-hour meetings. And then it's meeting after meeting after meeting, and it feels like I'm not accomplishing what I should. And then I began to realize I need to get control of my schedule. I need to control my schedule. And if I don't control my schedule, how am I going to teach my staff, my teams to control their schedule? So I realized a couple main points, and then we're going to talk about it practically and do Q&A. There are 5 thoughts that I want to give you, and then we'll go to a Q&A. 5 thoughts. The first thought is this: budget your time or others will spend it. If you don't budget your time, others will spend it. I believe that time and finances have a lot of similarities. If you follow Dave Ramsey, as we try to and should, he's like a ghost in the back of my mind who speaks to me every time I want to buy something now. Dave Ramsey will tell you that a wealthy person is not somebody who makes $500,000 a year. He's somebody who properly budgets that which he does make, right? There are people incredibly in debt, and I've come to realize this. I learned this years ago from him, but it's true. I meet wealthy people now who have no money month to month because even though they make $250,000 a year, they spend $300,000 a year. They don't budget it. And then I meet people that make $50,000 to $60,000 a year who always seem to have enough and extra because they properly budget it. In the same way, people budget their finances and have plenty of money left over is the same way people budget their time and feel as if they have plenty of time left over. I believe right now, after 19 years in ministry and as a church has grown, I have more time than I did when the church was smaller. You say, well, of course, because you've all these people to work for you. But as anybody knows who begins to bring on employees and bring on staff and bring on more deacons, is that even by new staff, that requires more time to properly train and manage everybody around you. We all know this to be the case. So how is it that this far in the ministry and this much later on in life, it feels like I have more time on my hands and then less time? And the answer is properly budgeting your time. If you don't budget your time, somebody else is going to spend it all. And everybody you meet wants to spend your time. I believe that there are more people that are going to be selfishly trying to spend your time more than they want your money. And the reason is because it's a limited resource. Now, the difference between finances and time is you can always get more money. You can't get more time. And the difference between finances and money is that there are richer people out there with far more money than you and I will ever know, but there's not one person in this world who has more time than you. We all have exactly the same amount of time, 168 hours every week. That's what you have. That's what Bill Gates has. That's what the president of the United States has. And that's what a homeless man has. We all have 168 hours. So the question is, how do you properly manage it? First thought, budget your time, others will spend it. Number 2, goals are achievable through time blocking. I don't think pastors don't have goals. I hear a lot of teaching on set goals, set goals, set goals. I think all of us set goals last December for January or in January for this year. I don't think it's that we don't have goals. I think that we don't know, we are unable to achieve those goals because we don't understand that the key to achieving goals is time blocking. Again, goals are achieved through time blocking. Okay, so let's talk about this specifically. What do we mean by time blocking? What we mean by time blocking is taking the 168 hours that God gives you every single week and blocking out the times to ensure that your goals are the priorities. Again, taking the 168 hours that are given to you by God and blocking out the time to assure and ensure that your goals are the priorities. You already do this. You already do this. You do this because you've said that your wife is a priority, that your children are priorities. So you've time blocked a family day, or you've time blocked family night. You teach people to do this. You tell them if God is a priority to you, you block off the Lord's Day, or you block off Sunday morning to go to church. You already teach time blocking, and you already live time blocking. All I'm asking is that you think about time blocking, not just for your family and not just for God, but time blocking the entire week. Taking all of the big rocks in your life, placing them in, and then pouring all of the sand around it, just like you would for your budget. You're going to make sure the first thing you budget is your giving to God. And then the next thing you're going to budget right after that is probably your mortgage or your rent. And then the next thing after that are your utilities. You're going to make sure the big rocks get in there first, and then you're going to fill in the rest. The same thing is true with time blocking. If you're not achieving your goals, my big question would be, have you given yourself enough time in your week to achieve that goal? So if somebody says, my goal by the end of 2023 is to finish writing my book. All right, it's a great goal. That's a great goal. Let me see your weekly schedule. So what do you mean my weekly schedule? When do you write your book? You're like, I don't know, but I'm thinking maybe in July, I'm going to go to the beach in a week. I'm going to work on it for a whole week. Are you sure you're going to? Why not, instead of hypothetically maybe going to the beach for a week and working on your book, what about hypothetically looking at your weekly schedule and finding a 2.5-hour block of time every week that you say nothing's going to interfere, because that's when I'm going to be writing. Turn off your phone, you don't do emails, you turn off all of your notifications, and all you do is time block and if you do that, then you're able to write half a chapter every week. Half a chapter every week gets you all the way to the end of the year, and you wrote your book. This is what we're talking about. You have a goal, you can achieve that goal through time blocking. I'm sure there are questions, we're going to get to it. Number one, budget your time or others will spend it. Number two, goals are achieved through time blocking. Number three, update your 168 quarterly. Now, for this, I need a visual aid. Now, again, number two, update your 168 every quarter. This is where a lot of guys drop the ball. For this, I'm going to show you an example of a 168. All right, let's see if we can get that up. Oh, I think Kylie's got that coming in. Let's see. Here we go. So this is sample 168 schedule. And by the way, you can download this offline. This is a simple thing to find. You can look for Laura Vanderkamp. She's very good with this. As you can see, this has your weekly schedule starting at 5 a.m., going all the way to midnight. And this is a sample schedule. You can put in your big rocks, right? Family day, got family dinner time, you've got your devotional time, you've got your exercise time, taking care of yourself. Again, that's a great example of what we're talking about. If you say in 2023, I need to prioritize my physical health so that I can still serve God properly 20 years from now, my question to you is, great, that's a great goal. What do you want to do this year? I need to lose 15 pounds this year. Awesome goal. Let me see your weekly schedule. If somebody said to you, I need to grow spiritually, somebody in your church says, I really need to grow spiritually, I need to walk with God more, and you're like, that's awesome. And then they don't come to church for a month. And then they go to coffee with you and they're like, my real goal is to just become a follower of Jesus like never before. And then they don't come to church for another month. Eventually you would address time blocking. Eventually you'd be like, so what do you do on Sunday mornings? Yeah. If you want to be a follower of Jesus Christ, Christians go to church on Sunday morning. You're like, but oh man, I've got 1,000 things on Sunday morning. Something always comes up. You time block that, and that's what you do. And then you would talk to them about time blocking, time in prayer, Bible study, whatever spiritual disciplines work for this individual. Same thing is true when it comes to physical exercise or properly take care of yourself. Whatever those goals in, put that in. Here's again, just a sample schedule. Sermon preparation. Where is that going to be? When's your staff meetings going to be? When are you going to be in discipleship with somebody else? When are you going to get your office work done? When are you going to give yourself creative margin? I call it vision planning, idea creating. When are you giving yourself that time? Whenever it comes to financial budgeting, sometimes people ask the question or make the statement, pay yourself first. That's what savings account is, right? Before you do anything else, as Christians, we tithe, and don't get with the theological discussions. You can call it grace giving if you want, but you give a certain amount to God. And then you put aside a certain amount for savings. Why? Because you're paying yourself first. Then you have 80% of your money to do whatever you want with, right? So do you pay yourself by family time, personal time, private time, and idea creating, vision planning? What meetings do you need to take? What coffee appointments do you have? What office work needs to be done? Now, this is obviously just a sample schedule, and I can give you my personal one. In fact, I'll probably throw it to Kylie to do. So as we're looking at this one specifically, I want to go to that third point that I brought up, and that is update your 168 quarterly. When you get to a new quarter, and for me, we live in quarters. Right now, we're right in the middle of winter. December, January, February is our winter quarter. We're right smack dab in the middle of winter, which means already I'm beginning to think, what is my spring schedule going to look like? And every single quarter, I look to the next quarter and I say, what do I want my spring schedule to look like? I just did it. I turned it into our deacons this week, not because they demanded, but because I choose to. And I tell them, this is how my schedule is going to change for the next 12 weeks. Starting March 1st, all the way through May, this is what my weekly schedule is going to look like. Michael Hyatt calls it his ideal weekly schedule. You should update it every quarter because your goals might change every quarter. You should update it every quarter because sometimes your schedule is not working and accomplishing what you want it to accomplish. You update it every quarter because sometimes you look and say, man, I don't think our church is moving forward. What's wrong? It could be my schedule is not conducive to church growth. You update it every quarter because, again, you may not be focused on. So every single quarter, you're giving yourself margin to say, what does my schedule need to look like? And 6 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, it's March 1st, I'm changing my schedule. Now, I say update your 168 every quarter. I do this. My whole team does this. And then number 4, so again, for review, budget your time or others will spend it. Goals are achieved through time blocking. Update your 168 quarterly. And then number 4 here, prepare your 168 weekly. What's the difference? When you update your 168, you're literally going into the file and you're saying, I am no longer going to give myself 4 hours for idea creating. I'm only going to give myself 2.5 hours. That's what's going to happen in the spring. I'm no longer going to take 4 meetings every Thursday. I only have time for 2 meetings. Great. Why? Because maybe last quarter you realized there's not a demand for more meetings. But you're updating it because you're trying to keep this as accurate as possible. Can I give you a by the way? When you do this and people say, Pastor, would you like to meet this week? Most of the time, what we do is say, sure, when works for you, which is a huge mistake, no matter what the size of the church. If somebody says to you, Pastor, can you meet this week? Say, absolutely, I can meet this week. Here are my available times. And they fit within your schedule. Now, oftentimes, what you're going to hear is the same thing I hear, and that is, oh, Pastor, I work during those times. And you need to start training yourself to be able to say, I totally understand that. Meeting with a pastor is very similar to going to the dentist, meeting with a chiropractor, or going to a doctor's appointment. If you let your boss know that you have a meeting with your pastor, they'll normally give you an hour off to do that. If you do that, 90% of the time, people say, oh, okay. And then they'll go check with their boss. And now it becomes their responsibility to fit into your schedule rather than your responsibility to meet them at 6 o'clock when they get off work. That has absolutely changed the world for us. I'm glad Thomas brings this up. Calendly is a great app you can do if you don't have a good admin assistant to keep a hold of your schedule. So the point being, let them fit into your schedule. And then when they say they can't, push back just a little and say, I think you can. And here's how. All you have to do is talk with your boss about that. And so when I say update your 168 quarterly, then prepare. What's the difference? Prepare 168 weekly is there should be a time on Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, or Monday morning where you look at your schedule upcoming for the week and say, what do I have to fit within the schedule that has changed for my weekly 168, right? So this coming week, you might have to have your own doctor's appointment. And so you're saying, okay, this is my 168 for this quarter, but I have to fit this doctor's appointment in. Or my daughter has a recital, and this is where I'm going to have to fit that in. And so every single week, you're looking at your schedule, and then you're adjusting your schedule with things that had to change. You're also making sure that you're filling in the blanks, right? So if you have 4 or 5 coffee appointments available and you notice only 2 of them are filled, but you also know in the back of your mind, you've got 3 or 4 people you need to meet with. This is your moment on Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, or Monday morning to reach out to those people and say, hey, I have an opening on Friday at 2 o'clock. Would you like to meet with me at that time? So budget your time or others will spend it. Goals are achieved through time blocking. Update your 168 quarterly, prepare your 168 weekly. And then lastly, and then we'll do Q&A. Lastly, the 80% rule. The 80% rule. What is the 80% rule? If you're OCD and you're very, very concerned that when you make a dish, you're cooking, and you're a chef and you're making a dish and it says a pinch of salt, you get a pinch, you make sure it says 1 tablespoon, you are just shaving off to make sure. If you're a little OCD and you start trying to live this way, you're going to be like, oh, my 168 is blown apart because somebody interrupted my schedule, or I decided to skip the gym this week. If you do that to yourself, you'll never have a 168 that is a weekly sustainable schedule. You need to give yourself cushion to not follow your schedule. Say, how much cushion? I say 80%. If 20% of the time you're not living your weekly schedule, but 80% of the time you're doing it, awesome. You're doing great. You're doing great. So if 80% of the time it says I'm meeting with people over coffee, if 80% of the time you're doing it, that's all you need to do. You say, but it's not following 100%. That's okay. You'll never follow a schedule 100% of the time. It's an ideal weekly schedule. This is what you would like to be doing during this time. But if you're getting to the point where you're only following it 60% of the time, that's where you need to reevaluate and update your schedule to fit what you're actually doing. So that's why you have the quarterly evaluation and update. 80% rule helps quite a bit with that. Okay, so that's a lot of information. And again, this is more of a time management conversation, but maybe here today you say, Pastor Josh, I feel like I'm talking to my church. You might say, Josh, what questions, you might have some questions as it relates to this. What questions do we have? I'm going to throw it to you. Who would like to begin saying, Josh, how does this practically work? Or how can I adjust this in my life? Or maybe you have an idea of how you also use, like Thomas did, Calendly is a huge game changer. That can help you fit into your weekly schedule. Any questions based on what we talked about? Tony.
When do you do staff meeting? I didn't see that on your blocks.
Yeah, okay, great. That's because mine is not I'm gonna text Kylie my my current 168. That way you can see what I do. And then I'll tell you about my my staff meetings specifically. So that's a whole nother talk, and maybe we can talk one-on-one sometime, Tony. But my staff meetings are different. There's a Wednesday morning staff meeting called our tactical meeting. That is a 35 minute meeting. I don't even go to that meeting. That's led by Fred Murray, who is one of our lead pastor, our executive pastors here. And that's where all the staff get in a room and they basically are looking at the next 10 days. Here are the next 10 days that are coming up. I don't even attend that meeting. On Thursday, there are staff meetings that we do have, but every single week, every single month, I should say, or every single week, that staff meeting changes based upon need and desire. So if you look at my schedule has, there's a staff meeting going on Wednesday morning. Like I said, I'm not part of that. And then the staff meetings that I participate in are either the Celebrate meeting, the leadership meeting, which take place on the 1st and the 3rd Thursdays, and then the calendar meeting and the strategic meeting, which take place on the 2nd and the 4th Thursdays. So I go to staff meeting every Thursday from about 10:30 to 12 o'clock. And those staff meetings have very different purposes. It's a different talk I give called the 5 staff meetings. And we have 5 different rotational staff meetings that we do. I know that doesn't at all answer your question, does it, Tony?
No, that's good.
Yeah. For me, if you look at Tuesdays, for me, you'll see that Tuesdays are all Idea Network. So I give Tuesdays to Idea Network, and then the rest of the week I focus on the church. So Wednesday morning, we do a staff meeting. When do you guys hold your staff meeting, Tony?
We do staff meeting every Monday morning from 10 to 12, and it's all our lead team. And then once a month, we do our whole staff and support staff, and we do that the first Monday of every month.
Okay, great. Jason, as you know, Jason Schuler is out of the pocket right now. He's traveling, having a great time. He'll be back next week. And I'll talk with Jason about doing a talk within a virtual roundtable about different types of staff meetings. I would love you to speak into that as well, because I know, Tony, you lead a larger staff, and I'd be interested to hear your perspective on those. And I'll share the talk called the 5 staff meetings that we do. Any other questions about 168 and weekly schedule development? If you do, just unmute yourself and jump in.
So Josh, I got a question for you.
Yes.
What would be 1 or 2 things that you'd say, if you're not doing these things, you should add them to your schedule? I know we all have a lot of different things that we have going on, but you would say these 1 or 2 things really helped me, spiritual development, relational development, whatever, but just say you should add these to your schedule. Just what you think.
Yeah. The answer to that question really has everything to do with what your job description is and what your giftedness is. So if you're a senior pastor, then it would then come down to specifically what is your giftedness. So my buddy Jeremy Rands, who helps lead the network, he is incredibly gifted in administration. I am not gifted in administration. So his 168 is going to include things like budget meetings. His 168 is going to include things like staff development in a way mine is not. So it's hard for me to say what are the most important things outside of the obvious things. And I should state the obvious things: walk with God, family time. Those are unmovable rocks. For me and my skill sets, I want to spend more time in sermon development, and I want to spend more time with people. I want to spend more time leading groups of people and developing leaders. I want to spend less time talking to Grandma Susie about her cats and more time talking to Bill, the future captain of the police department. That's what I want to spend most of my time doing. I want to identify who the leaders are, and I want to start investing time specifically in them. To answer your question, most practically, things that have changed my life schedule most is less. You get your friends. Less study time, more people time. I think most pastors spend more time in the study than they actually need to. Oh, this is great. Don't record this and put it out there. And less time with people. And I think that's because, and some people will blame it on their personality type. Oh, you're an extrovert, you're an introvert. Okay, whatever. I think it's really comfortable in our study with our books when the rain is coming down. That's what I think. And I think time alone with Jesus is so good. It's so good. It's wonderful. And, but when you're sitting across from somebody who needs help, I think that shepherding is really good. And then prioritizing your time with individuals who are potential leaders within your congregation. And by the way, sometimes grandma with the cats ends up being the person who has the most women in her small group. I have a woman right now, you would never know it, but she shepherds 45, 50 people in our church. She started a women's small group, a women's small group on Saturday morning. And she had like 6 women coming to it. Now it's the largest small group of our church. 45 to 50 women show up every Saturday morning. This woman, anytime she wants to meet, I'll meet with her. She wants leadership development, I'll give her leadership development. So, Stephen, does that answer your question a little bit? Awesome. Any other questions? Or maybe comments or ideas. I love what Thomas said about Calendly. It has been a game changer for him with scheduling appointments for people. Yes, Adam.
So quick question about when you were talking about specifically blocking time and things like that. How would you manage that differently? Just in our different contexts, you leading a larger church with a large staff, me being the only staff person, the only pastor there. And, I try to prepare messages usually a few weeks in advance so that if something comes up, it doesn't catch me off guard and throw my schedule. But, last year I had a few people in my church that died and I was there like at their house for a day or 2 days while they were on hospice care as they passed and things like that. And I'm very passionate about that. I love counseling. I love dealing with individual people in that way. But how do you adapt your schedule when you have very little flexibility of like passing that off to someone else?
That's a great question. I think what we might need to do is have a further conversation about practical ways of exiting a room. A lot of our extended times as pastors, we are able to accomplish in an hour what some pastors end up taking 6 hours to do. And so, for example, grieving, coming over and caring for somebody in the middle of the night, I would want to maybe do some further training on how to exit the room so that you can gain some of your schedule back. I do not want to shift your schedule. I should say passion. I think if you are gifted, one of somebody that a lot of us really admire, Shane Lewis, who is in heaven right now. Shane was a pastor's pastor. He knew exactly, and a shepherd. He knew what it was like to go into a room and just shepherd the room in the midst of a death and a loss. And if that's your giftedness and your passion, then you need to lean into that. What I don't want that to do is become such a passion that ruins your schedule because you have other responsibilities. And so I think it's more about how to exit the room than it is about that. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
You're talking about death. Are there other types of things other than death that tend to derail your schedule?
So sometimes it's just a matter of, and I know this is my personality, but I personally struggle to say no to church members that ask me for my time. And so I'll have people that say, hey, can we meet? And I'll be like, all right, yes, take an hour for this. And then I try to maintain that if it's like formal counseling, okay, an hour and you're out. But other times if someone really needs something, we just, I'm trying to be there. And saying no is not the easiest thing for me personally.
Yeah. So I think saying no you've already said your answer. You need to say no sometimes. Right. And then sometimes it doesn't need to be no. It just needs to be absolutely yes. And here's when I'll meet with you. Remember, their urgency is not your emergency. Mm-hmm. So just because right now they had a fight with their wife and they need to talk to you immediately, we can train these people to trust us and go to us first rather than go to God first. That's not a good scenario. And so sometimes people, and you know the type, sometimes people need to know, I cannot wait to meet with you Friday at 2:00. Mm-hmm. And then what will happen often is by the time it gets to Friday at 2:00, they've already taken care of their own urgency. And now they just want to talk about something else, which is great. You're training them that they can take care of that. And so beginning to identify specifically the foibles of each individual sheep, and then say, no, I'm not going to play into your continual emergency. Does that answer that question somewhat?
I believe so. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. But again, I would block out a time. Even at that stage, I would block out a time, Adam, and say, my day for meeting is half a day Thursday and all day Friday. And then if somebody contacts me on Monday, Pastor, I'm really upset, I got to talk to somebody. I'd be like, oh yeah, what's up? Is everything okay? And then I would give myself 5 minutes to talk and say, no, I've got to go because I have an important meeting right now. You say, what's your important meeting? With God to write my sermon. So I have to go. I've got an important meeting right now with my daughter to play baseball or whatever. I've got an important meeting. I got to go, but I cannot wait because I have blocked time for you on Thursday morning. Can you meet on Thursday morning? No. Friday afternoon. Great. Friday afternoon. I'll meet with you. Pray about this. And I can't wait to meet with you on Friday. That's you have to start getting used to that type of rhythm. Good.
Sure.
Other questions, comments, thoughts about this? Nick.
just a thought on that as well. It's also a good opportunity to provide other resources to point them to other, places they can find some help on their own rather than just depending on that conversation. It may be a book, it may be an online resource to say, hey, in between now and the time I can meet with you, go check out this, article, or, check out this book or something like that, which teaches them to kind of look, kind of grow on their own in some of their crisis moments and stuff as well.
It's a great point. And this is where leadership development really is the best use of your time. If you're able to spend time developing leaders, it'll answer all of these questions, meaning who are your deacons in the church, or depending on your scenario, who should be the deacons of your church? And who is it that you can commission to say, you know what, I'm so glad. So I've got a guy in our church who just came off of meth. I don't know now, probably 6 months ago. When somebody comes to me right now and they're dealing with addiction, the first thing I do is I say, I want you to meet with my friend. Say, oh, he's only 6 months off. Yeah, but he's 6 months off. This guy's only 3 days off, right? And so immediately I'm going to say, I don't want to meet. I can't meet with that person. What am I going to tell that person? I've never been on meth. So I want them to meet up. My point is, there are qualified people in your church. You may not call them deacons. They may not be qualified in your perspective and theology that they can be a deacon, but there are people in your church that you really truly can empower them to shepherd the flock. And I would begin identifying and then shepherding them. I should say leadership development, meaning if you're going to schedule out your week, put a few blocks of hours to where you're meeting with Bill and Jack and Sue once a week or once every other week. So you can tell Bill, Jack, and Sue, just so you know, when emergencies come up, I'm going to send people to you. And you say, well, what happens when you send them and they screw it up? That's okay. What happens with a 5-year-old when you throw them into the pool? They learn to swim, or you jump in and get them. It's fine. It's not going to be the end of the world. And I think leadership development and then throw people into the deep end of the pool and let them practice ministry. And it's truly helpful that way. Good. Somebody else? Questions, comments on this conversation?
Yeah, hey Josh, I had a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Garrett.
Yeah, I had a question. So what did the collaboration between you and your wife and your family look like in developing this schedule? Or was it like, hey, here's what I'm going to do, and then you just kind of communicate it to them? What did that look like?
Yeah, great question. The collaboration is that when Heather sees my schedule not being what she wants it to be, she'll tell me. And then I collaborate with a mutual submission. So yeah, I think that's really what it is. And it's an ongoing dialogue, Garrett, obviously. It's an ongoing dialogue because sometimes I've scheduled more than I should and they'll let me know. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. I'm been married 3 years. I got 2 young kids. And so, yeah, I'm just in the process of, my wife and I are constantly talking about just the needs and the demands and how I'm going to be present when I'm there. But I just want to be sensitive to what that coordination process will look like.
If you'll notice in my weekly schedule, you'll notice on every other Thursday at, I think it's like 1:30 p.m., I have a one-to-one meeting with Heather. That one-to-one meeting with Heather is literally to go through our 168, our weekly schedule, so that I'm finding out what hers is, what changes, what updates. She's finding out mine. And some programs call it couch time, where mom and dad have an opportunity to not only talk about issues, but talk about schedule. And if I would include that in your schedule. I don't know that it's necessary every week. By the way, again, going back to Dave Ramsey and finances, Dave Ramsey says the same thing. You've got to budget with your partner. So they get to the point where it's every single week. I think you could do it weekly, monthly, or bi-weekly. Heather and I do bi-weekly. So every single other week, we actually sit down and we adjust our schedules.
Thanks.
A very profitable time, very profitable. By the way, if you're leading your wife gently, but as a leader, and you're like, man, they need to kind of get their week in order as well, this is a great way to begin that conversation. By presenting your 168 to her and saying, hey, I'd love you to speak into what my weekly schedule is. Eventually, after a few months, You won't force it, you'll lead it. She'll begin saying, and this is exactly what happened with Heather and I, she'll begin saying, boy, I'd really like to get my schedule in order. How do you do that? It's a great thing. I've done it not only with Heather, but I've done it with our entire team. And they like the 168 the more they learn about it. Good. Anybody else? Next question. I think Thomas had raised his hand, but I think he may have. Oh, there's Thomas. Thomas, did you have a thought?
Yeah, I was just going to say that time blocking helps other people from stealing our time and energy from other people. So, you know, that way this needy person isn't stealing away from the entire congregation by taking your sermon prep time. They're not stealing your time away from that person who you didn't have time to get your mentoring stuff together because you spent extra time with this person. And of course, you already touched on the fact that, hey, once you have the schedule in place, that's your out with whoever. Like, I've got this meeting coming up and they don't need to know what it is, but you've got that, hey, this is the appointment. So it goes a long way in kind of setting those boundaries and helping people from stealing your time.
Yeah, it's a great point. You're not just taking care of the one who really needs a lot of attention. By properly time blocking, you're making sure the person who doesn't scream for attention also gets attention. Have you ever heard people say to you, Pastor, I know you're really busy. I know you're really busy. Have you ever had people say that to you? The reason we have that said to us is because within the culture of our church, we've projected that as a concept. If you're able to get to a place where you have enough time blocked off for meetings, we do at Southern Hills, where we can literally put up a slide that says, meet with the pastor, call him for Friday, and I'll come to a Friday and there's still openings. I still have an opening this Friday coming up, which is only a few days away. And we announce on almost a weekly basis, hey, meet with the pastor anytime you want. And it's not really, can they really meet with the pastor anytime they want? Well, technically, no, but we announce every single week, meet with the pastor anytime you want. So there's this culture of I can meet with him anytime I want. But really, they'll call in and they'll be like, oh yeah, pastor does have an availability this Friday at 10 o'clock. My doctor, I feel like I can meet with my doctor anytime I want, but I know whenever I call in, he's going to have a few openings, right? Same thing. And allowing the church people to begin realizing that your schedule is like a doctor's, a dentist's, or a chiropractor's is helpful. And then to push back on them and say, I think you can get off. I think you can get off. Just ask to get off early for lunch. And then otherwise I won't be able to meet with you for a couple of weeks, but you can get off. 90% of the time they do. Any other questions or thoughts or examples as Thomas gave? Tony, yeah.
So you said 90% of the time that works. What do you do in the other time? Do you make exceptions?
Yeah,
Or
I
you just
do.
say I can't meet?
No, I do. If I feel led of, this is a Holy Spirit thing though. If I feel led of the Holy Spirit, I need to meet with them. Otherwise I'll give it to another team member. So, and you're in the same scenario I am, Tony. We're blessed to be surrounded by really gifted people. And if I can say, you know what, honestly, you want to talk with me about your teenager? This is not my area of expertise. You say, but you have teenagers. I understand. You know why I have good teenagers? Because who I talked to was Pastor Caleb whenever I was going through problems with my teenagers. So I will send them to somebody else, or I'll make an exception, like any of us would. Like just this week, there's a woman who I love, and I haven't met with her for a long time. And Melanie just about an hour ago texted me and said, do you have time to meet with Christy? Where can you fit her? I know what she's going through. And so, yeah, I'm going to meet up with her off of my schedule, outside of my schedule. Now, it'll go in my schedule for accountability reasons. It'll be in a public place. We're going to be at the same Starbucks that I meet every single person, and all of those baristas know me, and I'll meet with that person, and Heather will know, my assistant will know, everybody will know, but I'll meet with that person. But it was not on my official schedule, but it'll go on my official schedule. It was not part of my plan, but I know that I need to meet with that person. It's a Holy Spirit thing for me at that point. Good. But what I'm wanting for you, Adam, and for others is that to be the exception, not the rule. That's the 80% rule that I was talking about. 80% of the time, you should be able to really follow your schedule. 20% of the time, it's just going to get hacked up, and that's okay. not the other way. 80% hacked up, 20% you've decided what you're going to do. Good. We have 2 minutes. Any other questions or thoughts? Something that you've learned that you're like, hey, this could add to the conversation. All right, great conversation today, guys. I'm glad we had it. If you have more questions on that, reach out, let me know. Love to be a help to you in this. And like I said, I am excited about hearing from Ryan Thompson next week. Ryan's has become a friend of mine over the last year, a great leader down in Newport Beach. He's the one who took the church. Who is the former pastor there in Newport? Does anybody remember? It's a large church down there, pastor somebody. Anyway,
Mike Tomlinson.
Tomlinson, that's the guy. And took the church and has done a great job with it. Ryan's a good guy. You're going to enjoy getting to know him as he speaks to us next week. And then 2 weeks from now, obviously, we've got the summit. We're looking forward to seeing you there. If you have a need or questions about that, and you have somebody you're like, man, I really should bring this guy, or maybe even one of you are like, man, I wasn't going to go, but maybe I want to go last minute. Josh, do you have something that can help me? Just reach out to me and let me know. And we want to be a help in any way that we can. Thanks for talking, guys. Yeah, my phone number is in there, 702-343-3652. You can see it in the chat. All right, bye, guys.